This is March the 30th, 2020. I'm with Venerable Padabasa. We're going to talk about the novel Lord of the Flies and the idea of higher realm beings coming to help the world or intervene. So welcome back to the show, Venerable Padabasa.
Yeah, hey O'Brien.
Yeah, so I saw the movie when I was a kid, Lord of Flies. I thought it was very impressive. Never read the book, but you studied this well, I guess.
Well, I've read the book, yeah. And I mean, the movies suck. I mean, you might as well forget the movies because they mostly just deal at the level of the plot. But the whole book, Lord of the Flies, is itself a kind of symbolic parable. You know, like the whole novel, or the name of the novel, Lord of the Flies, is just an English translation of the name Beelzebub, which is a name for the devil. And so,
I didn't know that. I didn't get the meaning.
Yeah, the whole purpose of the story, or the main purpose of the story, is to describe the nature of the devil and evil in the world. And then also at this symbolic level, it's like an apocalypse. It's apocalyptic literature. It's talking about the history of the human race on planet Earth and the destruction at the end. You know, just like in the book of Revelation, you know, the angels pouring out the bowls of wrath and all that kind of stuff, and destroying the world. And
yeah, I think of the story like when the ship sinks and all the adults die and these boys survive in the island. To me, that's like an advanced ancient global civilization 13,000 years ago perishing, and humanity becomes like children again with amnesia. To me, it's an image for that.
Yeah, well, in the novel, it was an airplane crash. It was World War III has started, and so
it was an airplane crash. Oh, yeah. World War III, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, and so these English schoolboys from like some kind of military school are being evacuated, I think, to Australia, and then the plane goes down and gets shot down or something, and so these boys are stranded on this deserted island. And that's part of the symbolism. It's one of the things that Golding couldn't really fix is, you know, there's no airplane, you know, the airplane disappears, all the adults disappear, but he had to have some way of just having kids alone on an island, because that's like part of the symbolism is the island is Earth. And the children are human beings. That's the human race on planet Earth.
And so the plane, was that like a previous higher civilization gets shot down in a war, destroyed?
Well, the thing is that adults in the story symbolize angels. So they're like higher beings. And we can get back to that because there's two adults in the story that are important. They're the only two adults in the story, and then both of them have important symbolic roles to play. But I mean, just for people that have never read the story, you know, you got these kids that are stranded on this island, and they start off civilized. So in a way, this is like the Buddhist idea of civilization, where you start off advanced and civilized, and then you degenerate and get lower and lower and lower until everything just hits the fan.
Yeah, the peak of the age, things peak out and then go down over long periods of time.
Yeah, so it was kind of, the Christians kind of had that idea too of like gradual moral degeneracy and the powers of evil, you know, getting their hooks.
Yeah, the Garden of Eden at first, everything's fine. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. And so the whole story is these kids are gradually sinking into savagery. And the main character in the story is a guy named Ralph. And that's symbolic too, because Ralph is like alpha. He's like the primordial man. He's like Adam, you know. And Jack Merridew is like the other. He's like the leader of the hunters. Like they're the ones that turn into like the satanic group, and they propitiate the monster. And I don't know if you remember this. It's kind of weird that I'm even talking about this because I haven't read the book in many years, but I don't really want to read it again because it's such a creepy, scary story. You know, it's like there's some movies or some books, I don't want to look at them unless I'm in the right kind of mood because it's like a really heavy story.
So now I want to go to YouTube and see if I can watch Lord of the Flies movie.
Yeah, well, the movies it's like I say, the movies suck because they completely miss out on the symbolism of it. They don't talk about the nature of the devil. Lord of the Flies means Beelzebub. It's the devil, right? And they just get rid of that, and it's just like a movie for entertainment or whatever at the level of plot. So there's almost everything in the story symbolizes something else. Like one of the friends of Ralph, the good guy, is a kid that gets called Piggy, and his glasses are what they use to start fires. They use the magnifying glasses of his. He's got he's really nearsighted or something. He's got these Coke bottle glasses, and they use those to start fires. They use them as magnifying glasses, and Piggy symbolizes like science, and the glasses like represent technology. And eventually Piggy gets killed, and the hunters steal the glasses. It's like as civilization starts collapsing, you've got the bad guys. They really don't have the level of civilization to invent new stuff, but they're going to be grabbing all the technology they can and using it for their own benefit. And just everything in this story is symbolic of something else. Like, for example, at first, when they're still being civilized, they build a signal fire at the top of the hill as a way of letting, if any ships go by or anything, they might see the signal fire and come and save them. And that's like symbolic of religion, like organized religion. They're trying to send like a message to the gods or to the angels, to the higher powers. And like I already said, angels or higher beings are adults in the story. The human beings are the kids. And there are two adults. One is a dead paratrooper. He falls from the sky, and he's got like a parachute, but he's already dead. And his face is blown away. And he lands in such a way that when the wind blows, the parachute will pull him up, and he'll sit up. And then when the wind stops blowing, he falls down again. And so you've got this corpse that's like raising its head and then lowering it, and then raising its head and then lowering it. And the kids get the idea that that's a monster. And that's like the monster that rules the island. And when they kill a pig, they cut off the head and they put the head on a stick as an offering to the monster.
Really?
Yeah. And this is like Golding, the author's idea of what the devil is. It's like the devil doesn't really exist as an individual being, but still it's real because it exists in everybody's mind. Everybody believes in it, or they have like this dark place in their mind that allows this evil to exist. And so you got this group of hunters that are like propitiating the monster, and that's like, Satanism taking over the world. And then at the end, Ralph is the only kid left that hasn't either been killed or hasn't joined the hunters. And the hunters at this point, they've got like war paint and they're like wild savages.
And did Ralph have the conch? I remember the conch, right?
Yeah, that symbolized government. When you at first,
Ralph had it.
At the first, when they're all civilized, in order to speak, they'd meet around the fire or on the beach, and they'd have a discussions on what they were supposed to do. And you couldn't talk unless you were holding the shell. That was sort of like law and order. That was, rules and discipline. And then, of course, that all gets, probably the conch gets smashed. I can't remember now. But, that stops working as things get worse and worse. And so Ralph is the only kid left, and they're out hunting him. They've got a stick that's pointy at both ends because they're going to sacrifice him. And they're chasing him, and they're trying to kill him, and the whole island catches on fire. And that's symbolic of Armageddon. That's the end of the world. The whole planet is on fire. But the thing is, that's when a human ship, like a Navy ship sailing by, sees this whole island on fire. And it's better than the signal fire that they had already stopped doing because religion had already broken down. It's like, that times 100,000. It's just this huge, like, distress signal coming up. And then at the end, Ralph is running away from these screaming hunters. He's running for his life because they're going to sacrifice him to the monster. And this one sailor from like he gets off the ship and he's like in a skiff, comes to land, and he saves Ralph. And that's another angel. That's the first angel was like a dead fallen angel. So in a way, it's like a devil. It's a fallen angel, but it has no soul. It's just dead. But the second one, he's a live angel, and he's like one of the good angels, And
yeah, I remember Ralph falls at his feet. This man's thing. So the kids become more orderly, right?
That's one of the saddest things in the whole story. Is at the end, Ralph is crying and crying and crying because of a feeling of lost innocence, which also is kind of fits in with the whole apocalypse theme, But I was thinking that, that's what Christians believe is going to happen. If you read the book of Revelation, things are going to get so bad that if the angels don't come in and rescue us, at least some of us, then everyone would die. So I was thinking, well, maybe that has happened before in the past where things have gotten really, really bad. And then compassionate or benevolent devas or aliens or angels or whatever, some higher beings, somebody higher up than us, has taken pity on us and just stepped in and kept us from destroying ourselves. And then they step back again. And I think that sort of thing may have already happened. I mean, it could have happened in the distant past or whatever. Who knows? Maybe that's where the Christians originally got their idea for it or something.
Yeah, I think the aliens might have been aliens intervening.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that reminded me of this is when we did the debate on prehistoric civilizations, that it could have been something like that where the human race almost destroys itself, or they get advanced, they almost destroy themselves, then some higher beings step in, and who knows, maybe even moves them to a different world or something and just kind of erases the sign that they were there, and then you go back to a more primitive level that starts building back up again. Something like that, I think, possibly could have happened.
Yeah, I think aliens may have brought us here, and there could have been cataclysm, and they might have brought more of us here or kept a few of us going. Well,
being a biologist, I'm pretty sure that we came from Earth, but still, I think there might be higher beings that are kind of watching us, maybe even like alien biologists that are just like studying our behavior and the evolution of our civilization and that kind of thing. And it may be that if we really are at the verge of really killing ourselves, and it may have already happened, we may, like during the Cold War, we've come really close to like launching the nukes, and it could have been just one of them just kind of stepped in a little bit, changed one little thing in the computer system or whatever, and then stepped back and stop the whole thing from happening.
Yeah, I think it could have been aliens, it's true. And the Buddha said that we did descend from devas, and the devas can either mean angels or actually aliens, anything from above, right?
In a way, he didn't really say we descended from angels. I mean, we were, or from devas. It's just that in the life before this one, we were in a deva realm. I mean, the first humans, not us, but the first humans before they inhabited the earth, they were in a deva realm. But then they were reborn as humans. They were sort of deva-like humans, but it's not the same as saying that we're descended from devas, unless you're interpreting that to mean that in the life before the life of the first humans, according to Buddhist cosmology, that they were in a deva realm. But that's true also of animals like mosquitoes and everything.
How would you interpret that if in the life prior to these first humans, they didn't evolve from apes or from other humans, right?
From the Buddhist point of view, from almost any religious point of view, I mean, there's no organic evolution in the Darwinian sense. They just had no concept of that. So different religions have different ways of explaining. Like most theistic religions just say, some God created us. But the Buddhists, they believe in endless cycles with no beginning. And so it's just sort of like transmigration of samsara that puts us here. It's karma and ignorance and just life after life. Sometimes you're in a higher realm, sometimes you're at a human level, sometimes you're at a lower realm.
Yeah, but the humans had to get here somehow. I think he said the Davis came down with some kind of sweet milk rice on the surface, and they tasted it. They liked it, so they got heavier.
No, it wasn't
heavier.
Devas, it was humans. But we were like Devas at first, and then we degenerated.
So he said the first people were like the humans were like Devas.
Yeah, with very long lifespans and no diseases. We didn't have to eat food, anything like that. And then gradually we started degenerating.
But where do we come from? Did they explain where we came from?
Where do we come from? It was the power of karma just materialized us.
Okay, so you're saying the first humans materialized, popped up.
Yeah, through the power of karma.
So this is during a time of great virtue, then you're saying?
Like at first, like according to the legends, first it's the throne of Brahma materializes, and then Maha Brahma materializes, and then he's the only being, in the world cycle at first, the world system, and then he starts getting lonely and wishing that other beings would be around him, and right at that time, other beings start, they're coming down from they're being reborn from the heaven realms also, and then he believes that he created them because he wished that they would be there, and then they were there. But even though it was just the power of karma that caused them to appear, he thinks that he caused them to appear through his own desires, and then he considers himself to be God Almighty and that kind of thing. But I mean, at first, it's just sort of materialization through the power of karma. It's not Devas like putting us here.
Yeah, so you're saying first the Brahmas come, the Devas, then physical human beings come through the power of the karma. They show up on planet Earth then. Yeah. So according to Buddhist cosmology, the first humans descended that way somehow by their karma. And this was time of great virtue, like you're saying.
Yeah, exactly how they're born. I don't know. I'm sure it explains it somewhere in the books. But there are some Devas don't have to be born. It's only the lower Deva realms that have Devas that are actually born of a mother. Like the level right above us, the level of the four kings. There are still Devas that the female Deva gets pregnant and has a baby and makes a new Deva. But
I didn't know that.
Once you get up into the higher realms,
they're like born on your father's lap. They describe that.
Long before the time you get to the Brahma realm, that you just a new Deva just materializes just through the power of karma. So I would assume the first human beings, according to Buddhist cosmology, appeared that way. Although being a biologist, it just seems like we evolved upwards from apes.
I believe the Buddhist view, but I think that Buddhist explanation sort of dots the I's and crosses the T's. That sort of makes sense from a logical, cohesive perspective of Buddhist cosmology. So then the humans are there, and then we degenerated, and we went up and down, and here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does we want to get back to Lord of the Rings? So you say that was kind of an apocalypse. So it ends with the sailor comes and the boys, they become more orderly because he's the adult. They have to pay attention to the adult. So the boys can't be savages anymore because there's an adult there to tell them what to do.
That also is where the symbolism breaks down. It's like any kind of like an analogy or a metaphor, it's not going to be perfect. So at the beginning where the plane just has to disappear and all the adults just disappear, that's kind of an awkward point. And then at the end, like from going with the Christian apocalyptic point of view, then all the savages, the ones that had been worshiping the monster and all that, I mean, they'd just be lost. They wouldn't be rescued at all. Only Ralph would have been rescued. And that's kind of where the story ends, is where Ralph gets rescued. And the other boys, they run up and then they stop because they're afraid of the sailor. They're kind of ashamed of themselves. And, they realize that, they've gone completely wild and, out of control. But that's where the story ends, because he can't really have them get, say, rescued too, because that would interfere with the symbolism of apocalypse and Armageddon.
Yeah, apocalypse. The Christians go to heaven, everyone else goes to hell. That's the apocalyptic story.
Only a few people will make it into heaven, and Ralph symbolized the few people that that get into heaven, that are
Yeah.
saved, that stay pure, that stay free of the grips of Satan all the way steadfastly all the way to the end.
Yeah. It's a great
Most
story.
people are going to be with the devil by the time the shit hits the fan. That's like the Christian point of view, or at least that's the early Christian point of view, because now Christians want to believe that all you have to do is just be a Christian and you're saved. You can be a bad person even, it doesn't matter so long as you accept Jesus as your savior and all that. But still, I mean, the old-fashioned Christian point of view is that probably even most Christians are gonna go to hell. That many are called, but few are chosen, and you have to be pure and like in the world, but not of the world. You have to be dead to the world and alive in Christ and all this in order to be saved. And in Lord of the Flies, it's Ralph is the only one who survives, although he's just symbolic of just kind of a minority of good people. Like Golding wasn't suggesting that only one person would be saved, but for the purpose of the story, he's got just Ralph is the only one who stays pure and stays civilized up until the end.
I think the movie was 1964 in black and white, but do you know when it was written and who the author was?
You mean the novel?
Yeah.
Well, the novel was written by William Golding. I think that was like early 50s, maybe.
Oh, that would make sense.
And then they made another movie version, a color version of it, like in the late 80s, which also sucked. Oh. I think the old black and white version, I've been told, I haven't seen the old black and white version, but I've been told that it was better than the later color version, because the later color version was just dumbed down to make an entertaining movie and just completely lost all the symbolism.
I think that might be deliberate on Hollywood's part to kill the meaning and just,
Yeah, plus people are just dumbed down and they just want entertainment and they don't want anything deep and unsettling and kind of spiritually oriented.
Yeah, so was the author, was he British?
Yeah, he's British.
Well,
and he writes a lot of that dark kind of pessimistic stuff. Yeah, he's a good writer. So it's really a good book. It's like a minor classic in English literature, but like I said, it's just really scary. It's a scary book because you're just watching these kids just degenerate and get wilder and creepier and more.
It is scary.
And not only that, not only at the level of the story, just the plot, but just at the whole, it's symbolizing like the whole world doing this. And that makes it even creepier and scarier. So it's just one of those books where, or like Dostoevsky's Notes from Underground, where it's really well written and an interesting story. So in a way, it's a page turner. You want to see what happens next, but at the same time, it's like you're almost afraid to see what happens next. It's sort of like little kids watching monster movies where they're like having to look through their fingers to see it, because you can't bear to look and you can't bear not to look.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's educational. I mean, it's educational, something about real life in there when things degenerate.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be educational to someone who wants to get past the surface and try to understand the symbolism of it. And if they're a Christian, I mean, reading this kind of stuff is helpful if you're a Christian and you believe this. I mean, I'm not a Christian, and I can appreciate it. Maybe in past lives I was Christian, but to a Christian person, it would be even better because they believe that this is true, and then it would be more meaningful to them at a deeper level than for me. But still, I like it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to me too. Well, I like that kind of symbolism and allegory,
Yeah, and the whole story, like Lord of the Flies, is one of the best examples of a story that's just a parable. Almost everything in the story is symbolic of something else.
Yeah, I never knew that until you told me. I had no idea when I saw it. I was a kid when I saw it.
Well, if you saw the movie, then there wouldn't be much.
Yeah, that's true.
They just kissed that part off.
But now that you told me I could watch the movie, maybe I could look for the symbolism.
Yeah, although you'd be better off just reading the book.
I'm always terrified when people ask me to read the book. Oh no, that's going to take so much time. Movie can take an hour and a half.
Book, though.
Okay.
It's not like a big thick novel. It's not very long. Or something like Apocalypse Now is another symbolic story that has like the deeper level to it, And you know, the original story that it's based on is only like what 90 pages long or something like that.
Yeah, we should tell the viewer we already have a video comparing Apocalypse Now, Lord of the Flies, and something else. Remember?
Yeah, I can't remember what the main one was.
Yeah.
We just mentioned Apocalypse Now and Lord of the Flies. Just
Yeah,
kind of
and there's another one too, I think. But
yeah,
they
there
can
was
scroll
the
back.
main one, but I can't even remember what it was now. Maybe it was The Idiot.
Oh, I think it was The Idiot. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was The
because The
Idiot.
Idiot also is like Lord of the Flies because it's at one level it's like symbolic apocalyptic literature talking about the end of the world. You know, from a Christian point of view, how you know the whole world gets evil and or like in the Idiot, you know, it's like one person symbolizes the false prophet and another person symbolizes, you know, Mr. 666, the beast, and all this kind of stuff. I don't really remember that in Lord of the Flies, although there was a kid that symbolized Jesus. He was the kid with epilepsy. And he was the one that figured out the devil. He's the one that figured out the monster because he's like in the forest by himself because he's kind of a quiet, shy loner of a kid. And he sees the pig's head on a stick and he has an epileptic seizure. I can't remember at which point he has the epileptic seizure, but he figures out that the devil is really just a pig's head on a stick. And then he wants to go back and tell the other kids that he figured out what the monster really is. You know, that the monster doesn't really exist. It's just that their belief kind of makes it seem to exist. But when he had the epileptic seizure, he had like a bloody nose and he had like blood on his face. And it's at night, he comes out and the kids have just killed a pig and they're all dancing around the fire, like whooping and, you know, like wild Indians. And it's dark and they're already got their blood up and everything. And they see this person come out with like blood on his face and everything. They think he's the monster and they kill him. So that's kind of symbolic of Jesus, where, you know, they think, you know, Jesus is the bad one. And so they kill him off when actually he was the one who had it figured out.
This also reminds me of the cave with the Plato's cave, that someone comes back in the cave to try to tell people the truth and the people turn against them and kill them, like Socrates. Plato's upset about that, like upset about Socrates getting killed. Same kind of idea.
Yeah, although I think in the simile of the cave, it was just, he just seems like spaced out and weird and nutty. And so nobody takes him seriously. Because he's, you know, his eyes are dazzled by the bright light outside the cave, and he comes back in, and you know, it's like he's fumbling around because he's not used to the dark or something. And then people think that he's just like a retard or a fool or something.
It's like when we talk to normies, you know, we know how the world really works. We're trying to tell normies, you're just a conspiracy nut, you know. It's like that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I was thinking. You know, if it could happen in the future, and it does kind of make sense. I mean, if you do have higher beings that are watching over us, and if they're superior to us, especially from a Buddhist point of view, they'd probably be morally superior to us too, then there is a good chance that they would have compassion or whatever. And so they would kind of step in as unobtrusively as possible and save our ass and then kind of step back. Or maybe, you know, if they make themselves real obvious to some group of people, they might have to just remove that group of people, move them to some other place, you know, to kind of, you know, sort of cover their tracks and then kind of let things keep going with, you know, as unobtrusively as possible. They don't want, you know, it's sort of like in Star Trek, the Prime Directive, where you're not supposed to be interfering with, you know, the native cultures and all that. So, you know, it could be some kind of deal like that where they're just trying to be as invisible as possible and just kind of studying us or keeping an eye on us. And then,
yeah, I think so. Like the Mayans just disappeared. They don't know what happened to the Mayans, and we see people see UFOs flying around, but they don't really seem to want to relate to us. And I also think of the karma, like if like 12,850 years ago, if comet fragments wiped out a previous advanced civilization, might have been the karma of most people to die, but some survived and carried on, and maybe some higher realm beings kept some people alive or something's going. There's also the law of karma, which is more powerful than higher realm beings, right? That's more fundamental, don't you think, to reality?
Yeah, well, from a Buddhist point of view, karma is pretty much the ruler. You know, nobody can do anything to you unless it's in agreement with your own karma for it to happen to you. So that includes devas and Maras and Brahmas, you know, they really can't do anything to you unless it's already your karma to have it done to you.
Yeah, all beings in the universe are subject to karma, even the Buddha.
Yeah.
People get upset with me when I explain that to them, you know.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't believe in karma, but most of them really don't understand what karma is, including most Buddhists probably. Because karma is a mental state.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not some sort of invisible law of physics that keeps track of everything. It's mainly just the momentum of your own mind.
Yeah. Then there's the results of karma, like karma vipaka, the results of past karma.
Yeah.
That was the result of mental states back whenever.
Yeah, and everything, every vedana, every sensation that you experience is a result of karma from a Buddhist point of view.
Yeah, from the Abhidharma says that, right?
Yeah, in fact, I asked, there's a Burmese monk that I know who's an Abhidhamma scholar. He's just like practically fixated on Abhidhamma. It's pretty much all he thinks about. And so I asked him when he was here last time if even neutral vedana or neutral feelings or sensations are also the fruition of karma. He said, yeah, everything. Any vedana, any sensation or feeling that we experience is the result of karma.
Just holding my Brian Rue cup and drinking some water, that's neutral karma, I guess.
Can be.
Well, it's a bit refreshing, slightly happy karma, pleasant karma.
Just seeing the white of it may be like a neutral sensation, neutral feeling.
Yeah, well, I like the white too. It's attachment to the logo. Yeah. We should tell the audience that's the Buddhist wheel in there, meaning Dhamma. The flame I came up with the idea, meaning truth burning through the falsity of lies. Yeah, so what else do you want to, on this, would you like to say?
That's pretty much it as far as I can remember. Like I said, I haven't read the novel in a long time, partly because it's such a scary, creepy novel that, you know, it's kind of an ordeal to read it. I mean, it just takes something out of you to read
Really?
the thing. If I had it fresh in my mind, I could probably think up lots of extra stuff, but yeah, that's about it. Mainly, I was just interested in first the symbolism of the whole story, but also, you know, how it could possibly relate to higher beings, you know, stepping in and helping the human race. Maybe even like in the past or the distant past. Maybe it's already happened before. Not to the level of, you know, like complete cataclysm where the world is coming to an end, but still, it could have been some major disasters or something.
I talked to a fellow, he was Palladian in his previous life, Sebastian Martin. He was saying there's been 5 periods of great civilizations in the past, and one was a reptilian civilization going back millions of years, maybe billions of years. He said there were 5 in his view. He receives these downloads, and other people in ufology say the same thing. There was 5 periods of civilization. But of course, the Buddha would say a similar thing, right? These periods that come and go and come and go.
Yeah, I doubt that he'd have the reptilians in there, though.
Yeah, I guess they don't. Yeah. Buddhism has Nagas, but Buddha never said Nagas rule the world, you know?
No.
That's a whole other thing. That's my quest to figure out all this discussion about reptilians, and is this something completely different than what the Buddha said about Nagas? It seems to me it was something different.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There are going to be differences.
Yeah, difference between what the Buddha taught about Nagas and what people talk about reptilians today in ufology. I'll probably never know for sure, but I just have a working hypothesis. So I just say I don't know. Yeah. Well, I guess people can look for Lord of the Flies book on Amazon. I'm hesitant to recommend Amazon, though. You go to a secondhand bookshop and pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of places where you can get it. I mean, it's everywhere. It's probably still in print.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's like a minor classic of English literature.
Yeah. Well, thank you kindly, Venerable Panabasa. Good talk.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Please donate to the Brian Rue Show. Please copy these videos or find other YouTube channels that will accept these videos so we can spread this message further. Thanks.